So here's a fun fact that will come as no surprise to you. The cost of building an entirely new car in today's day and age rivals that of putting a man on the moon. That's why the concept of a partnership where two disparate car companies come together to create one or more products on the same platform is not entirely new, but it is somewhat rare. Now, you and I already looked at something like that. The result was pretty good. It just wasn't as good as, say, a moonshot from a certain domestic manufacturer. That was around 60,000 US. What if we were to make it a little bit more challenging? Say the price point half that. Would that make the partnership more enticing, especially the second go-around? Let's get to the obvious right at the top. Yes, Toyota does engage in these types of partnerships more than other car manufacturers, which brings us to a question. Why? Answer: low volume production cars. Now, you and I can debate the merits of these partnerships in a completely separate episode, but in reality, it gives us a vehicle they do not sell a lot of. The concept of today's vehicle is a higher volume, low volume production car, if that makes any sense. Now, anyone that is a car guy knows this is the second generation of the Toyota Subaru partnership as opposed to this Toyota and BMW partnership. What does that mean? Well, if it's Subaru, it means it has a flat engine. Flat 4 in this case. Big change here. It goes from a 2-liter flat 4 to a 2.4-liter flat 4. That changes the horsepower pretty significantly, goes up to 228 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. Now, yes, this is a rear-wheel drive sports car. It does have good fuel, maybe not good, perhaps respectable fuel economy, 19, 26, 21 combined. Then there's the concept of performance figures. This does not have a turbocharger in it. So 0 to 60, to give you an idea, on the previous gen version that came out in 2012, that was like 7 seconds to 60 for the automatic and 8 seconds to 60 for the stick. Here, 6.1 for the automatic, 6.6 for the manual. Now, in terms of VMAX, it's 140 and 134 for the automatic. Now, how do they arrive at such a big change in 0 to 60? Well, it is that increase in displacement. What they've done is they've increased the bore of the 4-cylinder engine. Okay, now that we understand all of that, is this just a case of the Toyota-Subaru partnership throwing a more powerful engine into a gussied-up looking version of an 86 or BRZ? Well, not exactly. You see, you can't just throw more power into any old car and expect it to work. One would need to support that extra power with different targeted changes throughout the vehicle. Like in this case, there is a torsion-limited slip differential in the rear. But then it wouldn't be prudent to add more power to a vehicle without increasing the structural rigidity of the vehicle, as we've learned with many BMW M cars. This is no different. Like the bottom of the engine bay, they've strengthened that to help with the increased output of the vehicle. But then the rear of the vehicle, they've increased the lateral stiffness by using more high-strength steel at the back portion of the safety cage and increasing the structural rigidity of the C-pillars. Now, yes, I am rather excited to be back in my home state of New York after a rather unusual 2-year absence. But I am more excited to be back on Monticello Motor Club, one of my favorite tracks. However, this is the first time you and I are doing this with not a very powerful V8. And that means this is somewhat light. One of the lightest cars you and I have driven in a very long time. 2,811 pounds, or depending on how you express your weights and measures, 1,275 kilograms. This one, fitted with the automatic, is 40 pounds heavier. With that, track to ourselves. Oh yeah, that's a flat 4, all right. About 4,500 RPM, this thing starts to come alive. It's not like this really come alive. It's exactly what you'd expect from a flat 4 boxer engine. It doesn't have all of the usual like turbocharged pleasantries that we see in Porsche Boxsters, that kind of stuff. Toyota did something incredibly smart, and they brought the previous gen car here so we could drive them back to back. And I gotta tell you, there is such a big difference by changing the size of the engine. Now, yes, you really gotta wring the neck of these things to get torque out of them. That's just the inherent character of a flat four, especially a four engine. Bit better when it's a turbocharged 6. Here, it's an improvement because of the extra bore. That makes a difference in delivering some power here. Is it night and day? No, but when you go back to back between the two cars, that's when you notice the night and day difference. Now that gets us into the transmission, and here there is a noticeable difference between the two of the cars. I got the opportunity to drive a stick as well as this automatic on the track. The stick obviously is the one I would want, but something I am shocked to tell you, the majority of these cars, like 80%, are automatic. What the hell are you buying a car like this for and buying it as an automatic? I get it, it's usable daily, but this is not the kind of people that I see drive these things. I see people that tune these things. Get the manual, and there the manual is just so much more usable with the power band of this engine. You can wring its neck a bit more, really push the vehicle, and that's where the personality, the character of this thing absolutely shines. Now there is a time when you try to use the paddles and you do get denied shifts more often than I'd like to see. I'd like to see this to be a dual clutch, especially with the way that engine delivers power. I think the character would be better suited to a dual clutch, but that's me getting to the wish list a bit too early. Oh, and while I'm making requests, this would be a great opportunity to ask for your help with the algorithm. What does that mean? Well, that means hitting the like button, leaving a comment, subscribe, notifications, but most importantly, sharing these episodes with your friends on all your socials, especially Reddit. It would greatly help us here so we can do more things like this. Go on great tracks with fun cars that are not over 3,000 pounds. Admittedly, she ain't the fastest thing out there, but this, all about the driving dynamics. God, this is fun to drive. So a bit of a recap as to what is underneath the vehicle. McPherson struts up front, double wishbone in the back, and yes, stabilizer bars front and rear, 18.3 millimeter up front, 14 millimeter in the rear. The brakes, not huge, 11.6 inch diameter rotors in the front, 11.4 in the back, and that, it all works with a car that is not just comfortably below 3,000 pounds, it's comfortably below 2,900 pounds. This is something that is wonderful to throw around a track. I'd say canyon roads, yes, we have to drive this on a normal shoot road, and probably mountain driving. I would almost go so far as to saying the car with the smaller wheels and tires, the base car, they had both the 17 and the 18 on the track for us to drive. The 17 is the one that is so much more fun. It's so much more tail happy. I'd almost go so far as to saying it's a better overall package than the car with the 18-inch wheels. Yeah, the 18-inch wheels, it's more substantial, but this is kind of like an Elise. If you put too much wheel and tire on an Elise, it degrades the overall experience. This is so much fun. It degrades the overall experience, meaning the ride quality goes away, the handling goes away. I get it, people want to put the bigger wheels and tires on these things to make them look a bit cooler, but this 18 is about the limit. And God, this thing, pitch, squat, dive, and rolls almost perfect. Yeah, if I was complaining and really being pedantic, I'd like a stiffer suspension. So yes, I'd have to give this a bit more thought, but I'd almost go so far as to saying that this, it's a bit more mature of an experience than a Miata. And yeah, there's the obvious, it has a roof, it's more structurally sound, but there's a couple of things going on here, like this steering. The weighting is almost perfect, it's direct, the feedback is fantastic. This is one of the spots that the Toyota engineers spent a lot of time focusing on, even over the Subaru engineers, to try to differentiate this vehicle from the Subaru. We'll have to answer that question later. But when you compare this back to back with the previous car, the steering here, it's a night and day difference and just aids into the overall driving dynamics. I don't want to say supremacy. I mean, this is still a not so fast, somewhat undersprung car, but the steering makes up for any other ills of a slightly softly sprung suspension. Get where I'm going with this? So a bit behind the scenes of where we are today, Monticello Motor Club, which is in Orange County, New York. It's about 2 hours north of New York City. This is one of these private track clubs, and it is one of the better ones out there. Fantastic track that can be broken up into a north and a south course. We are currently on the north course, which is both more technical as well as there's some more straight, so you can get some speed here. Now this track, it's great for a vehicle that has a lot of power. Like last time we did this was the 7 Series. We've done the RCF here. Those are kind of the perfect vehicles for this track. I'd say a 911 probably would be the pinnacle. But this, it worked well here because what they were trying to show was the extra power, really extra torque coming out of that flat 4. Like that wouldn't have happened in the previous gen car. That would have been a complete flat spot and we would have been on our ass there. That's why they came to this track, and I'm very thankful because it's one of my favorites. No, it is not that time to play your favorite game, Mind the Absence game, with today's contestant, the 2022 Toyota GR86, because the folks at Toyota did not give Kumo any pricing on this vehicle. They did give him a hint on pricing. They said it would be comfortably under 30,000 US. Now, what the hell does comfortably mean? To me, I don't see that as $29.95. I'm thinking maybe 28 and change, maybe 27 and change. I don't know about the destination, but that's where you see the basic car coming. And the strategy here is kind of like what they did in the Scion world. There's not really going to be any options. There's a basic car, which will have some good stuff on it, and then there's going to be a premium car. That one has some more stuff on it. Like, for example, that will have heated seats, a duckbill spoiler. I have to say it looks pretty good, but I can see how it would be off-putting to some folks. Then adaptive headlights, odd choice in this premium package. And then a leather and Alcantara sport seat. The seat doesn't change, it's the tactile feel of the seat, so the material changes. And then there are 8 speakers to the stereo, which would make a fully loaded GR86 around 33. That's what we're guessing. Now, a couple of things really important to point out. Again, according to the folks at Toyota, this is constructed at Subaru's Gunma, Japan plant. Entschuldigung for any mispronunciation of that city. Now, there are some differences between an 86 and a BRZ, because to me, they look really, really close. Like, for example, the mirror fairings are black on the Toyota. They do change the splitter on the back, and Toyota has taken liberties with their own wheel designs. So a little bit behind the scenes, my good friend Rowdy, who's the guy that runs these events, has given me a lot of solo time at the end of the day here at this wonderful track. So rather than take the car in, let's talk more about it. And that would be design and interior. Let's start with the interior. The car you and I are in is the premium. It has a couple of more things that stand out. The biggest thing you'd see, at least feel as well, is the tactile feel. Notice the dashboard and the door panels have like this Alcantara to it, as well as the seats. And I'd say it goes a long way to making this feel a bit better of a vehicle. We're gonna have to come back to what the cost difference is and understand if it's worth it. Now, one thing I'm gonna complain about, basically anything you want as long as it's black, that needs to change. We need this to lighten up in here. One way to do that, a sunroof, or at least a glass roof. I do not understand why Subaru and Toyota do not put a sunroof in these things. It needs it in a small, claustrophobic car like this. Please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, change that. And oh yes, a little bit more power. Then the exterior. When you see these things in person, you notice the difference in the design. You don't notice it when you see these things in pictures. As you look at it, like the car looks the same, it's just they changed the front end and the back end. Actually, that is not the case. Turns out they've added a lot of sculpture to the fenders as well as the quarters in the back, and it goes a long way to make the vehicle look a bit more sensual. This is not a very large vehicle. Most of you probably have experienced these things in size. They're a little bit longer wheelbase than, say, a 911. So by making some of the metal a bit more sensual, it makes the vehicle look a bit longer, but in reality, it's like maybe 10 mils longer in wheelbase. The only thing this thing really needs is a stiffer suspension. And I think that is really what is calling to the aftermarket world. That's the first step. Everything else, think of like that's the root level of the problem. Fix that problem, and then everything else can be reasoned up from there. So back to the top of the episode, what have we learned about partnerships in the car world from today's experience? First lesson, it is best for the partners to have their core businesses more aligned. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? Well, it was indeed a prudent choice to partner with a manufacturer that continues to evolve the technology of flat four engines that go into larger, more boring station wagons that are targeted to the residents of Oregon and Vermont and Colorado, and taking that know-how and putting it in a smaller, lighter, sportier vehicle. But really the second lesson is far more important, and that is partnerships work better when the budget is lower, meaning the price point of the car is not this, it is supposed to be to more people. And that's where bringing together two volume car manufacturers, granted, Toyota's up here and Subaru's down here, but taking that know-how, really the economies of scale, and applying it to this one low volume product, it makes for a better platform for which freaks like you and I can build more upon. So this brings us to the wish list, and here I'm going to ask a lot. I think there is a blue sky for a version that has a stiffer suspension setup, maybe different wheels, but not bigger wheels, and absolutely a turbocharger. Now, you can call it whatever you want, but it's got to be somewhere, say, 40, 45,000 US, because if it's in that range, Toyota, Subaru, whoever, they couldn't build enough of them. This is where I turn the episode around to you to opine in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I do want to put one more thought in your head as it pertains to that wish list item. Think about the color. How about like dark blue metallic maybe? Definitely not a black interior, but dark blue metallic, and perhaps gold wheels. Hell, you could even add all-wheel drive, call it an all-track. Until I see you in the next episode, be später.